Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. It happened on a Friday night, the kind that starts polished and ends in silence. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, low light, crystal glasses, laughter echoing off marble. She looked beautiful, the kind of beautiful that doesn't ask permission to draw attention. When Mark, her old client from the ad agency, walked in, she smiled like the air shifted just for him. I caught it. That deliberate pause, that glance meant to land, not just wander. He slid into the empty seat beside her when the others shifted to make room. She didn't move away. Her hand brushed his sleeve, casual enough for anyone else not to notice, but I did. The move was surgical, intentional, a test. And like every test, she wanted data, my reaction. I gave her none. While she leaned in to hear his story about some campaign win, I quietly placed my Amex Black on the table. The waiter's eyebrows twitched, the smallest acknowledgement that something had changed in the air. I signed the check, thanked him, and stood. She didn't even notice right away. Her laughter hit that practiced tone, light, charming, empty. When she finally turned, I was already at the door. Her expression froze mid-laugh. For a moment, I saw a flicker of confusion, maybe fear. Then the door closed behind me, the sound soft and final, like the click of an Audi A6 door sealing off the world. Outside, the night air felt cleaner. I didn't run, didn't think. I walked to the car, sat behind the wheel, and let the silence wrap around me like a suit that finally fit. I could still hear her laughter echoing faintly through the restaurant glass, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. It just ended. Some men yell, some beg. I paid the bill and left her to flirt for a ride home. That was the moment she stopped testing me, and I stopped being part of the experiment. I didn't go home that night. The city looked different from the driver's seat, sharper, colder, honest. I pulled into a Marriott Bonvoy downtown, parked, and watched the reflection of the streetlights slide across the hood. The quiet hum of the lobby felt almost clinical when I walked in, the kind of silence that doesn't ask questions. I checked in without giving my last name. It felt cleaner that way, as if anonymity could erase years of noise. Up in the room, the view opened over the skyline. I sat by the window and thought about how simple endings really are. No shouting, no slammed doors, just absence. My phone buzzed twice, her name lighting the screen. Then again, a text. Where did you go? I turned it face down. That glow, once magnetic, now felt like static. I ordered nothing, unpacked nothing. Just removed my watch, placed it beside the keycard, and stared at the city until it blurred. For years, I tried to measure stability in numbers, ratios, margins, projections. But love, I learned, isn't built on calculations. It's built on silence, and sometimes, silence tells you everything. When I woke the next morning, there were 12 missed calls and a few Instagram notifications. She'd already posted a photo, the table at Ruth's Chris, half-empty glasses, tagged, perfect night with friends. The comments section was full of hearts. None for me. That afternoon, I called the leasing office. My name came off the lease in under 10 minutes. Efficiency, the one thing I could always count on. The agent asked if I wanted my security deposit mailed or transferred. Transferred, I said. Quick, quiet, complete. By evening, she texted again. I can't believe you just left like that. But she could. That was the point. I didn't need to explain absence to someone who traded in attention. I scrolled once through her latest post, her smile perfectly framed, the man from dinner visible in the blurred background. Then I locked my phone and slid it across the table. The city kept moving. I didn't. Some choices don't need closure. They just need distance. By Sunday morning, the apartment had already started to disappear. The movers came early, quiet professionals who didn't ask questions. I watched them carry out the pieces of a life that had been curated more for aesthetics than comfort. Her marble vases, the framed sketches, the sofa she picked, because it photographs well. The space emptied fast, like someone draining a colorless memory. I left the keys on the counter, next to the note I didn't sign. It wasn't a message, just an invoice, folded once. The final rent payment, proof that I always finish what I start. I walked out without locking the door. Some doors don't need to be locked once they've been closed right. She called again that afternoon. I didn't answer. Her messages came in waves. First confusion, then anger, then concern, then nothing. By evening, silence. The algorithm of detachment runs fast when one side stops feeding it. At a coffee shop across town, I sat near the window with my laptop open, pretending to work. The hum of conversation, the clink of mugs, the faint smell of espresso, it all felt detached from me. I checked my email, booked a one-way ticket to Chicago, and closed the lid. Clean. Calculated. Done. Later that night, I opened Instagram again. She'd deleted the photo from the restaurant. The new post was a quote about self-worth and boundaries, written over a beige background. The kind of digital prayer you post when the audience you need is gone. I didn't comment. I didn't watch her stories. Detachment only works when it's total. When I walked back to the car, the city felt lighter. Not because I was free, but because I was no longer orbiting her chaos. She wanted reaction. I gave her absence. And absence, in the right hands, is louder than any confrontation. The next morning, I checked out of the Marriott Bonvoy. The clerk smiled politely, handed me a receipt, and said, "Will you be returning soon?" I looked at the keycard, then at him. "No," I said. "Not to this address." 2 days later, she finally stopped calling and started reacting. Not to me, to the absence of me. A friend texted that she'd asked around, pretending it was casual, like she'd just lost touch for a bit. But you can't lose what you took for granted. You just notice it's gone when the noise stops. I was already in Chicago, the city's rhythm matching mine, sharp, detached, forward-moving. My new apartment overlooked the river, clean lines, no clutter. I didn't bring much. A suitcase, my laptop, 2 suits, and silence. Everything else had belonged to the version of me she curated, the one who existed to fill her background, not her life. I kept my phone on silent. The notifications still came, but they meant nothing now. She posted another photo, wine glasses, city lights, the caption, "Fresh starts." The man from dinner was tagged. That told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't about love. It was about keeping an audience. That night, I sat in a quiet bar near the hotel district. The bartender wiped down the counter, said, "You new here?" I nodded. He smiled like he'd seen 100 versions of this story. Men starting over, pretending it was a choice. Maybe for some it wasn't. For me, it was strategy. I paid the tab, walked outside, and felt the air cut cleaner than it ever had. The city didn't know me. That was the beauty of it. No history. No expectations. Later, I opened her Instagram one last time. The photo had more likes than usual. I looked at it the way an analyst looks at a stock chart. Patterns, trends, volatility. Predictable. She was trying to look untouchable, but desperation always leaks through the edges of a curated smile. I locked my phone and set it face down. It didn't buzz again that night. When I finally fell asleep, I realized something simple. She was still performing, still testing reactions. But I wasn't watching anymore. And when the audience leaves, the performance ends, whether the actor admits it or not. A week passed before I heard her name again. My colleague mentioned it during a late meeting, offhand, like something he'd seen online. "Your ex's design page is everywhere lately," he said. "New campaign, new guy." I nodded, pretending it didn't matter. But it wasn't jealousy, it was recognition. She'd turned the fallout into a performance, and the man she'd flirted with was now her co-star. Predictable. I went home to my apartment overlooking the river. The place was bare, but the emptiness felt deliberate. Clean, organized, uninvaded. I cooked dinner for one, opened a bottle of wine I didn't have to share, and let the silence breathe. That's the thing about peace. It doesn't make noise, but once you've had it, you hear everything that used to drown it out. Later that night, I saw her post again. A photo from a restaurant, some rooftop spot, the two of them surrounded by city lights. Her caption read, "When loyalty finds you." I almost laughed. She wasn't loyal. She was lonely. And loneliness often wears the mask of moving on. The next morning, an email came through from a mutual friend, an invitation to a charity gala. She'd be there. I deleted it without hesitation. There was no point walking into a scene I'd already closed. But fate, or irony, had its own sense of timing. 2 days later, my firm announced we'd be sponsoring the same event. I'd have to go. When I arrived, the room was all glass and gold. The kind of place where people wear smiles like armor. She was across the room, dressed in black, radiant, surrounded by conversation that felt rehearsed. when her eyes found mine. The noise around her faltered for a second. I didn't move. I just nodded, acknowledgement without invitation. That was when it happened, the smallest crack. The man beside her reached for her hand, but she didn't take it. That hesitation was everything. The audience might not have noticed, but I did. It was the first time she'd realized I wasn't coming back. Not to explain, not to react, not to fill the silence she'd created. The gala felt like a simulation. Champagne smiles, hollow laughter, people trading compliments like currency. I stayed near the back, close enough to observe, but far enough to remain invisible. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, every gesture rehearsed, every word placed for effect. But her eyes kept drifting, not toward the man beside her, but toward me. At one point, she excused herself from a group and walked toward the bar. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The bartender poured her a drink, and she stood there, glass in hand, glancing over her shoulder as if waiting for a reaction that wasn't coming. The silence between us stretched across the room, quiet, heavy, deliberate. My firm's CEO found me, started talking numbers, partnerships, projections. I nodded when necessary, but my mind wasn't there. It was on her reflection in the glass wall, just visible enough to see her expression shift when she realized I wasn't moving. I wasn't part of her stage anymore. After the speeches, she tried to approach. I could feel it before I saw it. The hesitation, the way her steps slowed halfway across the floor. I turned, shook someone's hand, and stepped aside just enough for her to pass behind me. The gesture wasn't cruel. It was surgical. She stopped, lingered, then walked away. When I left the building, the city air hit like winter. My car waited out front, the valet handing over the keys without a word. I got in, closed the door, and let the noise fade. The sound of the door sealing shut was the same as that night at Ruth's Chris. Quiet, final, absolute. As I pulled away, I saw her through the glass entrance. She stood alone, scrolling through her phone, probably checking Instagram, maybe posting something vague, a quote about strength, resilience, moving forward. But I could tell from her face, it wasn't strength. It was realization. That night, I didn't drive home. I just drove. No destination, no music, no thoughts. Just the road, the hum of the engine, and the understanding that sometimes silence isn't an absence of love. It's proof that love ran out of reasons to speak. A few weeks passed before her name found me again, this time through an email from our old landlord. "She's trying to reach you," it said. Something about forwarding mail. I didn't reply. The truth was, there was nothing left to forward. Every thread between us had already been cut, cleanly, quietly. But endings have echoes, and hers were starting to reach me. That night, I checked her Instagram out of curiosity, not weakness. The tone had changed. Gone were the rooftop photos and filtered smiles. Now, the posts were muted, coffee cups, empty rooms, captions about growth. The comments were thinning too. The same people who used to hype her every move had gone quiet. Silence is contagious once it starts spreading. In the weeks after I left, she had traded attention for isolation. Friends picked sides. The man from that dinner, the one she'd used to test my limits, had already vanished. I'd heard he quit his job, left town. Maybe he realized she didn't want a man. She wanted validation. And when validation runs dry, she starts searching for someone new to refill it. I didn't post anything, didn't explain my absence. The less I said, the louder it became. Detachment has a strange gravity. It pulls people in when you no longer reach out. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Her voice came through, soft, unfamiliar, careful. She didn't ask where I was or why I left. She just said, "You really disappeared." I said nothing. The silence stretched until she exhaled, that same nervous sound I'd once found endearing. Then she said, "You were right to leave." And before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time. Not because of what she said, but because of what it meant. For the first time, she understood the cost of the test she thought she could control. Some lessons aren't taught through words. They're taught through the silence left behind. Days passed after that call, but her voice lingered, not because I missed it, but because it no longer carried power. It was strange how the same sound that once dictated my emotions now felt like background noise. I went back to my routine: work, gym, coffee, sleep. Precision replaced passion, And for the first time, that felt right. My peace didn't depend on someone else's attention anymore. Then one morning, I saw her name again, but this time in the context of business. My firm had just signed a new client, a real estate company rebranding one of their luxury properties. She was the interior consultant on the project. I stared at the name in the email thread, felt the smallest flicker of disbelief, then nothing. Life had a sense of irony, but I'd already stopped playing along. A week later, we crossed paths again, not in some dramatic scene, just a brief meeting in a boardroom full of people. She arrived late, composed but tired. Her energy was different now, stripped of performance. When our eyes met, she didn't smile, didn't speak. She just nodded, a quiet acknowledgement that this was no longer her stage. Throughout the meeting, I watched her avoid my gaze, focus on notes that didn't matter. Her hands trembled slightly when she adjusted her papers. I wondered if she realized that this was what accountability looked like. Not revenge, not confrontation, but distance. When it ended, she walked out first. I stayed behind, gathered my laptop, and noticed her forgotten coffee on the table, half finished, lipstick on the rim. I didn't touch it, just looked at it for a second, then left it there, a symbol of everything she used to be. Temporary, performative, unfinished. Later that night, she posted again, a photo of the skyline, captioned, "Some people leave quietly, and that's the loudest thing they ever do." For the first time, she didn't tag anyone. No filters, no audience. Just the view. I didn't like the post. I didn't need to. Silence had already said everything that words never could. Weeks turned into months, and the distance between us became something permanent, almost architectural, built from silence, layered with restraint. She never tried to call again. Instead, I saw her name in passing, tagged in group photos, mentioned in project updates, always at the edges of my world, but never inside it. That was enough. One evening, my firm hosted a private dinner for the same development project. It wasn't supposed to be personal, just business, but when I walked into the room, she was there. Alone this time. No entourage, no act. She looked smaller somehow, not in presence, but in weight. Like someone who'd been carrying a mirror too long and finally set it down. Throughout the evening, I could feel her glancing over, testing the air between us. But there was no tension left to pull. I spoke with clients, made jokes, signed documents. It was all smooth, controlled. She was the one unsettled now, her rhythm off, her charm misfiring in the quiet. For years, I had been the one seeking stability in her chaos. Now she was chasing balance in my calm. After dinner, she waited near the exit, as if rehearsing a conversation that might never happen. When I walked past, she said softly, "You really don't feel anything, do you?" It wasn't accusation, it was confusion. I met her eyes just long enough for her to see the truth. I did feel something, peace. The kind that comes after every storm has already passed. Outside, the city was slick with rain. I walked to the car, the sound of the tires hissing on wet pavement matching the rhythm of the night I left her at Ruth's Chris. Full circle. No anger, no sadness, just completion. As I pulled onto the highway, I thought about her silence that night, the way she must have waited for me to return. But I never did. Because sometimes walking away isn't about punishment. It's about preservation, proving to yourself that peace is louder than any apology could ever be. It was almost a year later when I saw her again, not in person, but by accident. I was scrolling through the hotel lobby newsfeed during a layover, and her name appeared in a headline for a design award. The photo showed her on stage, smiling, poised, composed. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. There was a calmness there that hadn't existed before, a kind of humility that comes only after falling too far to pretend anymore. I didn't feel bitterness or nostalgia, just recognition that we had both survived the same storm in different ways. I closed the article and looked out the airport window. Planes came and went, clean and efficient, no emotion attached. That was how I lived now. I checked in, boarded, and settled into my seat. The woman beside me scrolled Instagram on her phone. I caught a glimpse of the feed. One of her old posts, the Ruth's Chris photo, had resurfaced in my recommendations. The algorithm still tried to remind me of who I used to be. But algorithms don't understand closure. Halfway through the flight, I opened my notes app and wrote one sentence. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. It wasn't a message to her, not even to myself, just a statement of fact. The moment I hit delete, I realized that was the point. Some truths don't need to be kept. They just need to be understood once. When I landed, the air felt different. The noise of arrivals, the rush of footsteps, it all faded into background. I picked up my bag, walked outside, and hailed an Uber. As the car pulled away from the terminal, the city lights reflected in the window, sharp, distant, alive. Somewhere out there, she was probably learning to live without an audience. And for the first time, that didn't concern me at all. Peace doesn't come with closure or confrontation. It arrives quietly, in moments when you realize you no longer need to be heard. I didn't leave to hurt her. I left because silence was the only way to be whole again. And sometimes, that's the loudest goodbye there is. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.